Hello and welcome back to the channel. And in today's episode, we will be working on those shiny item orbs that we know from Souls-like game that contain items. So what we will be able to do is create this cool particle effect. It may not be perfect, but one of the advantages is that we don't use any shaders or textures. This is just a particle system, so it should be rather simple. And then we can interact with them. And as you can see, we have the start of our inventory where we can obtain items. For example, if I pick this up, I should obtain a shield. And that's correct. So this is the start of our interaction system and our inventory. Let's do this. Let's start by doing some simple setup, and let's go to project settings, find the clear color, and I want to change it all black just because I think it looks a little bit better. Okay, with that out of the way, we can focus on creating our item orbs. So let's create scene, new scene, and I'm going to use 3D scene as a base. Let's name it item orb, and let's save it as a scene. Then the first thing that we have to add is GPU particle 3D system. And I believe there's a way, yes, if we want to hide the gizmos, there's this show list of selectable nodes at positions clicked, and it's gonna go away, making it all clear. So I am no specialist when it comes to particle systems, but we'll try to create a simple setup that's gonna give us this item orb effect. So let's increase the amount of particles to 500. Let's change the time to lifetime 0.3. Everything else can stay as is. Of course, we'll get a warning because we don't have the process material and we don't have a draw pass. So let's start with draw pass. Now we will add new quad mesh for our draw pass number 1, and then we can start playing with some settings. Let's see. Basically everything needs to stay as is. The one thing that we of course have to change is the material. So let's do new standard material 3D. And let's start playing with the changes that we need. So first things first, we need to change the transparency. And here I can see we should set it to alpha, blend mode set to add. Now you can see it's a little bit more shiny. Then of course we don't need it shade because it's like item orb, it's shiny in itself. So shading, change it to unshaded. And then vertex color, we will set use as albedo to true. And since now you can see it's only a quad mesh, it's one-dimensional, but what we want is for it to be displayed the same way and not be influenced by camera rotation. What we need to do is to set billboard mode to particle billboard and keep scale on, and that way no matter how we rotate the camera, it's always sorry, it is always facing us. Okay, so it looks uniformly from all angles. Okay, we have that set. Now it's time to work on our process material. So let's collapse all of this and we can start with the process material. And that's gonna be new particle process material. And you can see already something is happening. The particles are getting generated and they're falling towards the ground. Okay. Let's go to spawn and let's go to angle and velocity. And let's change the angle from 0 to 360. Okay. So this is first thing that we need to change. And then for the velocity, I would like velocity pivot to be 0, 1, 0 and direction to be 0, 1, 0, 2. Then we don't need any spread. So let's set this to 0. Okay, and we have that done. Then for angular velocity, I want to go from 0 to 40. Then what we need is also to change the accelerations, disable the gravity, and add radial acceleration from 1 to 5. So from 1 to 5. Okay. Let's see, what else do we need? We need changes to the scale because we need that effect of an orb. So 0.1 for scale minimum and then 0.75 for scale maximum. Then what we would like to have is color curves and hue variation. So hue can vary from minus 0.2 to 0.2. And you can see that there is already some color taking place. What we need also is color initial ramp. So let's open this and let's work on our gradient. This is going to be rather simple. We will just move those 2 points a little bit closer to each other. Okay. It still does not look good. Let's see, what else do we need to add? We need to add the initial velocity. So in spawn, let's collapse this. Velocity, there's initial velocity, and we'll go from 1 to 4. Okay, and it is looking kind of nice, but then we also need to change. We also need to change the scale based on a curve. So this is going to be in display scale curve, new curve texture. You can click on it and we can start manipulating it. So I'm going to add a point here and let's bring this down and let's play with this a little bit. Okay, and you can see we're getting closer to what we wanted. Maybe I could just position it a little bit better so it is more orby. Okay. And then I'm gonna say this is pretty good, or at least good enough in our case. You can of course make it better and more realistic with shaders, texturing and stuff like that, but this is more advanced subject that would require a tutorial on its own. What we would like to do is to have the ability to change the color, right? And it is doable totally because we can control the material in draw passes, and then also we can control stuff like color curves, and that would be enough to control the color. The problem is I would like to control this from code so that I can dynamically spawn different item orbs with different colors based, for example, on rarity of the item. So we have to add a script. Let's place this in scripts, open and create. And this might seem a little bit complicated, but we will go through this. So let's start by exporting some stuff. Export var color, which is of type color. And let's add class name. Then we can basically get rid of that. And that line. And here I will just call a function that we will write setup particle materials. And we need the reference to GPU particle 3D. We have that, and we can start writing setup particle materials with color of type color. And I can say first thing that we need to do is get a reference to draw pass and change the albedo color. So if we go here to our GPU particle, we need access to draw pass material, and then there's gonna be albedo color right here, and that's the property that I would like to manipulate. So I can just say GPU particle 3D draw pass 1 material albedo color is equal to color. Let's move this out of the way. And then I also need to change the process material. Okay, so I can say basically what we need to change is, let's find this. There's lots of properties, but we need that one. Color curves. We need to change the color initial ramp gradient. So this property, right? And to do this, we need to know a few things. We need to know the location of the points in our color gradient. And then we need to set the color. So basically we'll create a color gradient from a code. So let's do this. Color gradient is equal to gradient new. And then I will define the points that I would like to manipulate. So this is const gradient offset 1, is 0.14, and then gradient offset 2, which is 0.68. Okay, perfect. And then I can start working on this by saying color gradient add point gradient offset 1. It should always be color black, and then color gradient add point gradient offset 2 is of type color. And then I can say GPU particle 3D process material color initial ramp is equal to color gradient. And that should be basically enough. So let's try placing one of the item orbs in our world. So let's instantiate chart scene, item orb. You can see it here, all buzzing, and let's change it to green color. And let's see whether that works. And it's green. Perfect. We have our item orb in our world. But there's gonna be one issue. Let's duplicate that orb and let's change its color to red. And let's move it to the side. And as you can see, something is wrong because both of our item orbs are red, even though we set one to green and other to red. So the problem is that by default, what Godot is trying to do is for the scenes of the very same type, it is trying to share materials, which is very good because this is like performance boost because you're not creating additional instances of the color information or material information in the memory of your game. But as you can see, in this case, it looks like a bug. So let's fix it. Let's go to item orb code. And basically what we have to do is tell Godot to not reuse the same materials, but rather create unique duplicate every single time. So let's say draw plus material is equal to GPU particles 3D, draw plus 1, material, duplicate. And that's going to create unique duplicate of the material. Then I can say, oops. Then I can say draw pass material albedo color is equal to color, and we can reassign that material. That should fix it. And then it's gonna be the same for process material. GPU particles 3D, process material, duplicate. And I can say process material color is equal to color. And here I can say process material color initial ramp is equal to color gradient. And then GPU particles 3D process material is equal to process material. All right, so we duplicate, reassign the color. That's what I forgotten to do in the initial version. Then we create the gradient and then we reassign the material here and here. Let's run this. And now I have red and red still. So let's see. It's red and this is green. And to fix it, we need to change one other property of our materials. So let's go to item orb. And here for the process material, we need to go to resource and check local to scene to on. And for the draw pass, we also have to go to resource and check local to scene to on. And now we can have separate materials. Yay! Okay, so to finish up with our item orb, we also need to add the possibility to interact with those. So let's go to 3D here, and I'm going to add area 3D so that we can know when the player is next to the item orb. And I'm going to add the most efficient collision shape there is, which is of course the shape, sphere shape. So if there's a possibility to use sphere shape for something, definitely do. It is the most efficient way to figure out the collision, because basically you just calculate the radius from one point to other. So I can bump it up and set it to, for example, 2 meters. So as long as you are in 2 meters radius from that item orb, you should be able to interact with this. To finish it up, let's go to project settings. Let's find layers, and there's gonna be 3D physics, and I'm going to add item orb here. And I'm going to assign it. So here in the collision, it is layer 3 and it can collide with player. I'm going to player, collisions, add this to a mask so that we can interact with item orb. And then we need to add some code. So let's check the signals from the node, and we need body entered, and we need body exited. And for now, what we can do is just say, well, let's just print body every single time. And now we have it. We know when the player is near the orb. Perfect. The next step is to actually allow our player to interact with those orbs. But first thing, they should have something in them. So let's define an item and allow to assign some value to it. So I'm going to create new folder, and I'm going to call this resources. And in this folder, I will create new script and call this item. Let's open it up. Let's make it extend resource. Give it a class name. And I will say that it has a name, and this also has a mesh, which is a packed scene. And with that, I can create new resource of type resource. Call this one-handed sword. And I create another and call this shield. And then going to inspector, I can assign the script to them. It should work. Let's see. Yep. Here and here. And I will be able to set the name here and here. Let's see. Let me see. This is one-handed sword, sorry. One-handed sword. And then in assets, GLTF, I can find the sword one-handed, and assign it as a mesh here. So now this is associated with our resource, and do the same for the second one. So here I can assign like field. So this one. Okay, perfect. And now this is a resource. The other thing that I want to do is actually make it assignable to our item orb. So here I can just say export var item, and now can I use item here? Let's see. Yes, it works. So now I have this assigned to one orb, and here I can assign one-handed sword. So now the red orb has one-handed sword in it, and now green orb has shield associated with it. So the next step is to actually write a code that will allow for the interaction and create this very simple UI that we will show so that user can actually interact with the orbs. Let's get working on the interaction system, and we will refactor some code in future, but I would like to start laying the right foundation for our systems right now. Extending the plier script would not be the best way to go about it, because I would like to only have code that handles movement here. Everything else should be handled answer, and then we should just find a right way to synchronize between those systems. So I will start by creating additional nodes here that I can assign different scripts so that we can split our code reasonably. And I will start by creating new canvas layer here, and I'm going to call this interaction UI. Going to be very simple. Let's say branch out a scene, scenes interaction UI. So I will add just a simple label here. So let's start by adding margin container. So this, let's make it spread across the whole screen. This will be that little pop-up here at the bottom saying press F to interact or something like this. And I will try to set up our system so that we can interact not only with an orb, but also with, I don't know, a chest, a door, or something else. So what we need is, let's say 16 of the margin. Then I need item panel. I mean panel. Let's see. Just make it stick to the bottom and to the middle. Layout. The size is 300 by 100. Then the style is style box flat. Make it black. And then let's add center container as a child. Make it span across, and then finally let's find the label. Let's call this interaction label, and I'm gonna say here something like press F to interact. Center. Okay, maybe we'll need to change the font size. That's a little bit too big. Let's do 25. Okay, and let's see how it looks. Okay, this is enough for our case. We won't be bothered with the UI design. We need to add a little bit of code, right? So create interaction UI, move it to scripts, and I'm gonna create new folder. And so scripts UI, here we'll keep all of the scripts regarding the UI. Let's create, what do we need? Basically we'll make this invisible for the start. And I will need the reference to interaction label. And again, the path here is rather long when it comes to the path to node. So let's create a unique accessor. So I'm just going to get rid of that, and now it's way better. Okay, so let's do set item label text subtype string. And I'm going to say item how this interaction label, maybe let's change it to interaction label text. And let's make ourselves visible. And then let's say hide. That's going to just say hide. Does it make sense? Not really. Okay. We'll just hide it from the code. Cool. So we have that set up. Now it's just a matter of showing or hiding it. So we have that done. What else? We will need the information about the interaction, right? Yeah, so we'll need one thing in our item orb, I believe. All of the things that we would like to interact with will need interact function. And even though GDScript doesn't have interfaces like C# does, we can make it work. So what we'll do is we'll just say on interaction, emit a signal picked up and pass an item there. I can just say when we interact with this, do picked up and meet with item. Okay. And then here, what we'll do is we will say if body is player, body as player, get the reference to interaction handler, and we will say toggle interaction. So we will enable the interaction with that item. And then if body is player leaves the area, we will say interaction handler toggle interaction false, and null. Perfect. So now we need to create our interaction handler. And to do that, I will add an empty node, and that node will have the code that handles the interaction. So what I'm trying to say, as I mentioned before, is I'm trying to split the responsibilities across scripts and nodes, so not to overload just a single node and script with lots of code. So let's call this interaction handler, and let's add a script here. Change it to interaction handler, and let's start working with this. So get rid of that, and we'll try to have the reference to the current interactable item. We will we'll have a signal toggle interaction UI. Let's start by writing our interaction function. Interactable is on do we know the type? No, we don't need to know the type. Okay. Toggle interaction UI emit is enabled. This is the first thing that we'll do to trigger the UI. And then we'll say if there is interactable and interactable has signal picked up and interactable was not connected yet, so picked up is connected. We'll create on item pickup function. Okay, so we're looking at the past interactable, which is going to be self. So that instance of that orb, and we are checking where it has a signal. This is pretty cool because we can check whether given object has a signal in it, and we can check whether that signal was connected to something. So if it's not connected, then we can say interactable picked up connect on item pickup, else if interactable, so that we can disconnect basically. And let's store the reference to interactable. So self interactable is equal to interactable. Okay, this is not declared, but this is fine. So the naming of this is the same as the naming of that reference, so that's why I have to use the self to distinguish between the function argument and the class variable. Let's say class name interaction handler, and basically there are two types of interactions that we'll have: picking stuff up, like collecting the items, and other interactions, like for example, triggering the elevator, opening the door, opening the chest, right? So that's why we have to distinguish here with this special signal that's gonna say, okay, this is something that I can pick up. Okay, let's see. On item pickup. And here for now, on item pickup item, I'm just going to say print debug item. Okay. This is perfect, but this isn't going to do anything because we don't have the way to trigger the interact function yet. But going back to our interaction handler, I can say, let's start by going to project settings, input map, and let's add an interact function. And that's going to be just F. Okay. And then I can say, I can listen to input here. And I can say, if input is actually just pressed interact, and we have reference to interactable, and interactable has method interact. Okay, so we don't have interfaces in GDScript, right? But what we have is called duct taping. So let's assume for the artistic purposes that this is a duck. Okay, I'm no artist. So what is duck typing? Basically, this comes into programming from the old saying, if it walks like a duck and ducks like a duck, it is a duck, right? Meaning what we're doing, since we don't have the interfaces in GScript, we're checking if something has property and or has method. We assume that it is something. And here I make assumption that this is something I can interact with because it has a method interact. There's also, as you've seen before, has signal and has property, and we can even look into the help here. Has property, as you can see, and this is an object. Then we have has signal, and we have has method, and that should be enough for you to basically have some assumption about the interface that given class has and say, okay, if it has a method that allows me to interact, let's interact with it. And here I can just say interactable interact. So let's see where something happens. Invalid. Okay, I don't have the reference to interaction handler in my player, but this is not an issue because I can just go here and just grab it. and that should fix everything. Okay, so now as you can see, I have probably jumping assigned to F for some reason. Yeah, let's change it quick to, I don't know, Alt. Now when I'm in the vicinity of orb, I can press F and nothing happens. Interact. Okay, that should work. And it is working, so we can debug the item name, debug the item name here. And if I go here and press F, you can see one-handed sword. Here, also one-handed sword, because I made a mistake. So let's see, this is one-handed sword, and here it should definitely say shield. Perfect. Shield and one-handed sword and shield again. Okay, so one thing that is missing is for us to show the UI to toggle the interaction. Let's go to prayer. So here we have the interaction UI code, and I can basically just, how do I want to do it? Maybe instead of sending a signal, I can do it by hand. Let's drag this as a reference, and then I can say if is enabled, I can say interaction UI set, what's the name of that? Okay, let's add a class name here. That's going to be interaction UI. And then I can say set item label text. It should be set interaction label text. That makes more sense. I'm going to say press F to interact. Okay, and if it's not enabled, I'm going to say interaction UI hide. And let's see how this works. And the one problem is it does not hide when I leave the area here. Let's see, does it trigger? It doesn't, because I did not finish the code here. Or maybe I removed this. Toggle interaction false and null. Let's try this again. Okay, and that triggers now. Okay, so let's try this again. Perfect. Okay, cool. It seems we have this working. So the only thing left for us to do is to is to actually write simple handler for the inventory UI and add the animation for interaction. And we'll do that in the next episode. I mean, next section. Okay, in this part, we will start working on our inventory UI. But first, we need to fix some stuff because I've seen that there's something wrong with our interaction handler when it comes to connecting and disconnecting and picking stuff up. And this is due to the fact that here, when we're trying to disconnect from interactable and pick up signal, we're working on the pass argument. But what we should rather do is check for the stored variable and disconnect from that. So to fix any issues when it comes to disconnecting, we just need to add self, and self, and self here. And now we should be able to properly connect and disconnect the signal whenever moving from one interactable to another. So this is the fix that we should apply in our toggle interaction. Okay, then it's time to work on our inventory UI. So again, here in player, I will add another UI part. So let's add next canvas layer, switch to 2D. I'm gonna rename this to inventory UI. And let's save branch as a scene. Scenes, interaction UI, inventory UI. Okay, cool. Let's open it up. It's going to be very, very simple. We will add just few nodes here. So we'll start with margin container, make it spread across the whole screen. Theme overrides. Let's do 16 everywhere. 16, 16, 16, and 16. Perfect. Let's add VBox container. Okay, and then we can add the script. So let's go here, go to scripts, UI, inventory UI, and let's create. Let's start by adding the class name. And let's get the VBox container reference. And for now, we will keep the information about the items here. Later, maybe we will separate the information about the items from the UI itself so that the UI logic and everything regarding the handling of the UI gets separated. But for now, we'll leave it here. Let's create a function called this add item. And I'm gonna say items, append item. And I'm gonna call here another function, create item label, pass the item here. Item. Okay. This is going to be very simple. We'll create item label by saying label is equal to label new, label text is equal to item name, vbox container add tiled label, and we'll create a simple function called toggle, which will change the visible to not visible. Okay, and we'll start with this hidden. Perfect. So we have everything that we need right here, and here we'll just dynamically create labels. So what else do we need? Interaction handler. Here, whenever we do on item pickup, we should basically get a reference to inventory UI. Oops, inventory UI, and we will say inventory UI add item. Perfect. And with that, what we need is, I would like to, in upcoming episodes, I would like to refactor our code a little bit, and I will start that by creating a new node, and I'm going to call this, let's say, input manager, to store basically every single input here. So this is where we'll move all of our input reading. Let's see, input manager, but let's put it here. Perfect. Input manager. Let's get rid of that. And let's do input event if input is action just press, and we'll create new action. So input map, and let's say toggle inventory, and I'm going to use tab. Inventory, oops, we need to pass argument here. Toggle inventory, we need a reference to inventory UI, and just call toggle. Let's see, this should be casted. Perfect. Okay. Is this all? I think we're almost done. So let's see. I'm going to my orb. I'm pressing F to interact, and then I'm going out and pressing tab, and here I have a shield labeled. And if I go here and press F, I have one-handed sword, and I can toggle in and out of that. Perfect. Well, almost. We need to add a little bit of stuff, magic, and flavor to it. So I would like to play an animation whenever we interact with something. So let's try and actually, can we handle it here? It would only make sense to do so, right? I think so. Let me see. Yeah, we can try and handle it here. So let's see. We need to change our animation tree a little bit. And what we need is so-called one-shot. So one-shot animation, basically how it works is it gets triggered once and then it goes back to a previous state. So as in, I can pass the state machine. So this is like our general animation state machine. And then it can be interacted by a one shot. And I'm going to add animation here and find interact, or how is it called? Yeah, interact. Okay, perfect. So let's get our naming sorted here. This is going to be This is going to be interact. And this is going to be one shot interaction. And then in input manager, I should basically have something like animation handler, but we'll add that later. But here I can say if input, or basically maybe let's add it here for now. If we can interact, right, we can say we need reference to animation tree. And I need to sort information about how to trigger that one-shot animation. So going back to our animation tree, we'll see that right now I have this one-shot interaction and it has something called a request. So let's copy property path and let's say interaction one-shot request. And that's going to be the parameter that controls that. And I can say animation tree and then set. The property is, how did I call this? Interaction one-shot request. And then we need to pass the proper parameter here, and this is going to be one shot. How is it called? Oh no, it is called animation node one shot request fire. Okay, let's see, is that enough? So I would like to interact right now. I interacted and I'm back to walking. Perfect. The only thing missing is basically to clear the interactable, and to make it look good, let's go to our animation player. Let's open up the animation tab. Let's find the interact, and here we will add a key. So first let's write a function. So we'll just clear it if it's possible. And here I can add track, call method track, and this is the one on interaction handler. At the very end, let's add a key, clear interactable. Okay, let's try this. I'm going here, I'm pressing F to interact, and then the interactable gets cleared and I picked up the shield. And again, I position myself here because I'm in the collision sphere. Perfect. Yeah, that's basically it. That's how you can create those orb items and interact with them in Godot, in our Elden Ring-like game. I believe that in the next episode we'll look at the refactoring stuff a little bit, and we will try to start doing more work on inventory so that we can just manipulate the stuff in inventory and basically equip what we picked up. This is going to be the last episode before Christmas. I will try not to work on tutorials during that time. This is the end of the year, the time for the family, the time to recharge and plan for the next year. And I have definitely some big plans for the next year. And yeah, I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for that wonderful year here on YouTube. I started recording on April and the channel got massive traction. I love doing those tutorials about gaming in Godot. Your support have been incredible, and I wanted to wish you all Merry Christmas, lots of presents, lots of time with your beloved family, and a Happy New Year. And let's keep on coding. See you guys. Bye.